such an exciting episode today. I have the pleasure of being with Margaret Dembinski, who is the founder of Love Life Activate. Margaret is just a powerhouse of knowledge. We got to catch up for a few minutes before starting the video, and she was just dropping knowledge bombs on me left and right and things that I had never heard of before. So you guys are in for an absolute treat. Margaret, thank you so much for joining us. It's so exciting to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to chat with you, Teju, and share with your audience. And yeah.
Thank you. Yes. We have so much to cover. So I just want to start off with, just tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you start Love Life Activate? A little bit about your personal healing journey as well.
Sure. Yeah. So I grew up mostly in Vermont. I was born in Connecticut.
Oh, and
me
too.
My father. Oh, were you?
I'm from Connecticut. I'm from Danbury.
No.
Anyway.
Well, yeah. So my dad had gone through an experience in his early 20s, and he became very religious and Catholic, and we were raised, praying all the time and things like that. So I had a really big foundation of spiritual practices, and then definitely rejected all that, right. As you have to as a young person. But when I was in my early 20s, I got into a series of pretty nasty relationships, and I started researching. I was studying psychology because I kind of wanted to be a scientist or a doctor. I started researching what's going on here, and found out a lot of information that was helpful to me. And then, but the turning point was really when I came across something that said, when I started asking the question, first of all, well, what am I doing to attract these situations? Because this is a pattern. And obviously I'm the common denominator here. Even though, what they're doing is not okay.
It's not right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then I found some website that was just well, until you take full responsibility and complete responsibility for every single thing in your life, you can't fully heal. So yeah. And that's such a key to everything I do now too. It's that's that taking responsibility and being the center of your life, and being aware that, nothing comes into your life, or, everything is kind of a mirror and part of you, and something to work with or for you, even if it's, really awful. It's It's not us, but just realizing how much we're the center of things. So that really started my journey of searching and trying meditation and reading books. And I looked into AA. Sounded like a good spiritual path at that time, because it was about, admitting everything that you've done in your life, and going through a kind of an alchemical process. And I traveled to South America. I was still feeling really not a fan of, Christianity, because I'd grown up so in it. So I wanted to explore other things. But eventually, realized I really loved New England and wanted to come back home, and had a dream where one of my college friends was you need to decide if you're going to move to Boston right now. And so I moved in with her and her partner. They had an extra space. And then I found the Modern Mystery School and Jordan Bain, who was in Boston, and realized that even though it was kind of Western, they were teaching about readings and teaching about King Solomon and things that were kind of from the West, that I had decided were maybe not the best. I just totally resonated with the energy, and I did the life activation and noticed my eyes change right away, and awareness and my feelings in my body were changing. And then I just kind of jumped in, and I started learning the healing sessions, how to offer them to other people. And but my journey's been, started with this kind of heartbreak and these relationships. And so And then it seemed like I started attracting people who either maybe lost their love or they were looking for new love. And Love
Interesting.
Life Activate became my business name. So
Oh, fascinating.
yeah.
And just curious, because I feel like a lot of people find themselves in a situation where they're attracting the wrong relationships or they're attracting people in their life that may be toxic. And sometimes they're actually not aware of it, until things get really, really, really bad.
Yeah.
What was it in you that drove that awareness? Was it outside influences saying, like, hey, Margaret, obviously there's something not, right here? Or were you feeling this internal call and this internal pain to kind of, that drove you, that was that catalyst for you to kind of rethink, things?
Yeah, gosh. Well, the first one, relationship, it was not so much internal. It was really like, it just got bad and I got really
Mhm.
depressed. And I didn't really feel safe around him. And then one time he was like, I was in college, so he was like waiting in my dorm without
Oh,
me
no.
there, just
Yeah.
like stuff that was
Yeah.
really obviously inappropriate and not didn't. And it was interesting though, because he was the type of person that he had kind of cultivated relationships with all of my friends. So when I told them,
Um,
that they were kind of like, what? Like he's great. And stuff like
mhm.
that. So it was just like things that I was just like, no, And then
Yeah.
but then the next one, next relationship, he was actually in therapy himself. And so he was, even though he was kind of, he wasn't, it wasn't, didn't work for me or
Right.
whatever we were doing. But
Right. Right. You're like, no.
yeah, he wasn't
No.
terrible. And, but he was basically like, well, I like you, but like, this could never work because you're so anxious. And I can, he's like, I'm working with a therapist and I know that all these things about myself. And he's like, you really need to look into this for yourself. And so that was actually good, even though
Wow.
he was like,
Wow. Yeah. Right.
yeah,
Sometimes that, like that, I always say, like, there's those people in your life that, come and they kind of try to shine a light on things. And it's sometimes not in the right or healthiest way, but it does
right.
get you thinking. I've had that happen to me where
Yep.
if someone was like, you really need to work on your self love. And I was like, well, you're a jerk, but
Right.
maybe you actually have a point. It's like this. I actually probably needed to hear that, and it shifted me on my own journey. But
Yeah.
really, really interesting how that sometimes happens in the strangest ways. But that's great that I think that for so many women, I think the friends thing too. If you're friends like the person,
Yeah.
it's more about how you feel. And sometimes it's really difficult to stand up for how you feel, even if a relationship is seemingly on the outside good.
Right. Looks good. Yeah.
I think like knowing, and I love that you say this, like know thyself, know
Yeah.
thyself. And, you've got to create circumstances that work for you at the end of the day and relationships that feel abundant to you. So, um,
Yeah.
anyway, so then you ended up in the Modern Mystery School. Tell me more about the Modern Mystery School.
Yeah. So it's an international organization. It's in, I think, maybe 60 countries right now, and all over the US, there's practitioners. Um, there's a headquarters in Toronto, and also the big one. There's a kind of a equally large amount of people who practice this stuff in Japan as the whole rest of the
Wow.
world. Yeah, Tokyo is a big center as well, and we're practicing methods and modalities from the lineage of King Solomon. So that might be familiar to some people from other
Yeah.
books or readings or teachings they've done.
Sorry to
But
interrupt. Just if you don't mind, tell us a little bit more, because I'm actually unfamiliar. Tell us a little bit more about King Solomon and how that, how his teachings and modalities have shaped the Modern Mystery School.
sure, yeah. So you can read about him in the Bible, but it's not, our story about King Solomon is not exactly the same as the King Solomon of the Bible,
Right.
but kind of generally known as that he was really wealthy and very wise king, right?
Right. Right.
So I don't know if you're familiar with it at all,
Yes,
but
yes. I actually like high level. So by the way, I actually grew up Catholic as well. So, and I went to
oh,
Catholic
cool.
school. Yes.
Oh, no way.
So when you say all of those things, I
Yeah.
understand. So I understand.
It's
Yes,
a
yes,
powerful force in the
yes,
world.
yes. Very much so. Very much so.
Yeah.
Yes. So okay.
Yeah.
So
So go ahead.
oh yeah, I was going to say. So King Solomon, your interpretation is a little bit different.
So the modern mystery school story about King Solomon is that he gathered tribes from all over the world, and he was very wise, and he was also a very accomplished like magician and Kabbalist. Have you heard of the Kabbalah?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yes.
So he was very high level magician and like kind of looking to the future, and he saw that there'd be a time when people would be really disconnected from their tribes and we'd be all scattered all over the globe, and there'd be just a mix, and then people also would be really disconnected from their spiritual like lineage and have a hard time getting connected, and so he wanted to develop methods that would work for everyone, no matter where you were in the world, and no matter what family you came from, no matter where, just for every single human. So they worked for 30 years and developed these tools, including the life activation, which is like the number one thing I do with everyone, and then things like King Solomon healing modalities, and then he also, there's a bunch of ways you can study Kabbalah, but within the modern mystery school, we have the universal hermetic gray Kabbalah, which I guess I'm actually not completely sure about this, but I think he refined it in a way that's
Right.
powerful. So yeah, King Solomon is what the lineage is named after, and we use the tools every day.
Incredible, incredible. I want to get into hermetic wisdom. I don't want to lose that thought. We'll get into that in a second. But I do want to just quickly, because you do so many cool things at Love Life Activate. Walk us through some of the services that you provide, your process. I would love to, and also how did you craft these things? Because a lot of what you do is so unique and so interesting.
Yeah, well, really, I came across this, and I was on my own journey, and I was, connecting with my own guides, and that's how I found it. But it's really, I'm training in a lineage that we pass things down very, kind of very formally. And then I go back every year to recertify and make sure that I'm doing it correctly and I'm in the right energy.
Right.
And so it's actually kind of like recipes that have been passed down to me.
Mm.
So the life activation was one of the things that King Solomon developed with his studies, and this is the wand that I use.
So
during
cool.
the practice.
Tell us more about, is that quartz crystal?
It is quartz crystal, and when I went to the training, they were making them out of sage wood, and now they're making them out of maple. So they're plants from our continent, right? That are
right.
powerful, like medicine plants that hold the energy of North America. And basically, so the life activation is the first thing I want to do with people, but it's very powerful, and it helps to clear out like ancestral blockages, anything that you have that might be stopping your spirit self from like fully expressing here in the physical. But what that looks like is just so different for everyone afterwards. But often people will go through some kind of like emotional release, or they might, sometimes things get a little harder after you get the session. You have to figure something out or let go of something, or a lot of different things. But, some people, their business takes off, or they decide to move, or they find a new partner, or it just helps to like clear space for more of your true authentic essence to come through.
Got it. Now,
that's really the goal of everything.
Just curious, do you give the wand to the person to hold during the session, or are you holding the wand? Like how does the wand play into the session?
Sure, yeah, I just wanted to show it because it was
It's so
cool.
cool. I'm fascinated by this. I'm like, wait, I want one of these. This is so
Yeah, you
cool.
want one of these. Yeah, you can go. Yeah, so I like when you go to learn this modality, it's called Healer's Academy, and it just feels like Hogwarts. It's crazy.
Very
Everybody
cool.
gets their wand. I give the client these little rocks to hold on to.
Okay.
I hold the wand, and there's a whole like big ritual healing that we kind of do
Okay.
beforehand. So it used to be done like when it was kind of closed door practice. They would just do it for like high priestesses or royalty, and they do it in like a really fancy room. And but now you can so it's just really powerful ceremony, like almost like getting married or
Wow.
something like that. It's like all this energy comes in, and it's really powerful. But you can do it anywhere, like a living room or
Amazing.
the office. So that's
And it's releasing old, is it, limiting beliefs, things that you're holding on to? Or does the person have to set an intention going into the session on what needs to be released?
no, that's kind of the cool thing. You don't have to believe in it. You don't have to have an intention. It's kind of good if you do. And
Yeah.
also if you're someone who, I'd rather work with people who are ready to take accountability for their lives, because sometimes if
Mm.
things get challenging, it's a little bit easy to point fingers and like, oh, I shouldn't have done that.
You just unlocked all this stuff. Why? you know?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Right.
It's because really powerful things can happen. Like, some people, a woman I worked on, like, had lost her husband 20 years ago, and her son was very young. And all of a sudden, after life activation, she was like reconnected. She hadn't been able to find I don't know what the story was exactly, but like she was reconnected with kind of his roommate. It was just like very, very profound stuff that
Wow.
can come up for people. That's very deep and core. And so it's great if you're already, using awareness practices or, a little bit
Right.
able to take responsibility for your
Right. For
life.
when the things
Because,
come up. Right. Right. You're like, okay, I chose to do this, and now I need to choose to do the work in
yeah.
order to move forward, in my life. Uh,
Yeah.
I want to, before I forget, you mentioned ancestral stuff, ancestral trauma
Yeah.
or generational, baggage, for lack of a better way to put it. What is that, just for people who don't know, and how can someone overcome that?
Yeah. Well, we all have, ancestors, and we all have parents and grandparents. I guess that would be the closest ancestors, right? And they've all been through difficult things in their lives, and, often pass some of that to their
Mhm.
children, right?
Right.
Whatever people were not able to process or heal gets passed down. So, um, a lot of humans in our world, we've all experienced, horrible traumas. There's wars, there's, slavery, there's abuse that happens, and all this stuff will happen,
Right.
and happens to our ancestors too. So, you know, that stuff remains imprinted on our DNA as well. And so we might act or behave in certain ways in our life that are not serving us, and they're not aligned with us, but
Mm.
they are certain protective mechanisms that come from ancestral memories. We also have like ancestral gifts, obviously,
Right. Right.
like
Right.
things
Right.
that they did that pass down and make us strong and make us able to remember, beautiful things, and how to do, how to give birth to a child, for
Right.
example.
Right.
Like,
Right. Right.
yeah, so we have a lot of gifts from my ancestors as well, but life activation will help to kind of unhook some of those, not everything, it's a process, but like some of those heavy things that just we don't need.
Right. How do you know? I feel like this is something that you hear people talk about at a very high level, but it's how do you get to the place where you have a recognition that, hey, maybe some of the stuff I'm dealing with is generational or ancestral? How do you start to unpack and have awareness of maybe how some of that stuff is shaping your life?
That's a great question. know. I think that's an individual journey.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I remember realizing one time, my grandfather came from Poland during the war, and
Okay.
realizing like, oh my gosh, like some of this angst that I feel might be coming from that.
Right.
It's
Right.
not coming from my life at all.
Right. Right.
Yeah, but I don't think it's worth like overthinking it
Right.
because
Right.
because we
Right.
can get stuck in drama and stories.
Yeah.
I don't know, there's so many different examples, but I think, meditation can help you dive into that, or working with a practitioner that you really trust can help you point things out, or one time when my guide was like, oh, you have all this like you have a hard time settling down in like a location and being grounded because you have like Irish ancestors that were like running away from the English all the time.
So interesting. So interesting. Hey, baby, you know.
But like also it doesn't really matter. Like that's the thing. Like that's the thing I like about these tools is like you don't really have to know, and you don't like you can get into this story, and it can be really interesting to like really research your ancestors.
Right.
Really interesting to go into their stories, but also you don't have to. You can just let things go that are ready to go.
Right. Like, okay, we're recognizing this. We don't need this anymore. Let's move forward, and let's move forward for the next generation as well.
Exactly.
And reset patterns. I always think about one that I always think about that's really interesting is, scarcity, like people who really struggle, and you start to unpack layers of family lineage, and maybe it's, there wasn't enough food or money or things like that have impacted even the way that generations relate to each other, and that's always been one that I find really interesting, that people really have to work on in order to, kind of set a new course in their lives. So it's really, really interesting. Yeah. Now you do so many things, so many other things. Walk me through some of the other offerings. Would love to know. I know that you've had a Reiki journey, so walk me through a bit of your experience and your journey, of practicing Reiki.
Sure. Yeah. Reiki's really, really popular, and it's all over the world right now, which is really cool. I honestly, I'd never tried it before I found the Modern Mystery School. I honestly was not interested in this stuff. Like I wouldn't have touched it with a 10-foot pole. Until, I was like, I don't like psychics. Like, ew, don't come near me. Not interested. But
how did you overcome that? No, I don't want to do this. What kind of started to shift for you?
Well, it's actually, I was just, kind of struggling in my life, and I was committed to this spiritual journey. And a friend of my friend's mom was like, oh, well, our cat, we got a lot of help from a psychic with our cat. And I was like, oh, that sounds okay. So I can trust. So maybe I'll look into a psychic. I was just kind of desperate.
Yeah, you're like, hey, I'm open. Like whatever is gonna work.
I was like, oh, it worked for your cat. So like, okay, that makes sense.
Right. But sometimes it's actually good to be in that place because you are more open to try things versus, when you're like, this isn't in alignment with like what I've practiced before. So no, this is strange, Yeah. How interesting.
Yeah. So I just started looking up psychics because I was like, well, I don't want to use the cat psychic. I'll find my own psychic.
Right. You're like, no.
I found that, some of them like were really interesting. And this one woman talked a lot about Jesus and about Mary Magdalene. And I was like, wow, like I had not really thought about those beings for a while because I just like Catholicism.
Like that. Right.
But the things she was saying, and I was like, wow, actually this aligns totally with what I'm trying to practice right now. So, and then I talked to her, and she was the one who kind of connected me with the Modern Mystery School, not on purpose, but that's
just accident. It's funny how things happen, and it's all serendipitous.
And then Reiki was part of the Modern Mystery School. So I, of course, was like head first, dive in everything. I love everything that they're offering. So I learned Jikiden Reiki at first.
Tell us more about that, by the way.
Yeah. So, there was the man, Usoi, who kind of downloaded Reiki on Mount Karama, right?
Right.
And he had been practicing and searching, and then he taught to like a very select group of students the Reiki, but he was also a little bit, I think, scared of the potential and the power of Reiki. So he kind of limited it to just medical practice. So Jikiden Reiki is a very pure form that was like passed down to like one of his students and then one of their students, and then the son kind of really opened it up to the world. But in the Modern Mystery School, they've been searching, some of the people who specialize in Reiki were really searching for like, well, what was the more powerful stuff that he was scared to share. So Sophic Reiki is like the next level that is like the full system that's in our teaching. So it's like the full system of Reiki. We still do the I think it's called Gyoku. It's just like a daily prayer that you say, like, do not be worried, do not be angry, be grateful, do your duties, be kind to others. And
wow. Sorry, repeat that again. So that, and is this something that anyone could, that's such a beautiful daily prayer.
Yeah. Just for today, do not be worried, do not be angry, be grateful, do your duties, be kind to others. And you say that 3 times. And then you can also say it in Japanese, which is like, Kyo dake wa ii karuna, shinpai suna, kansha shite.
Can you speak what?
No. I can't speak it. But we learn it in the original language just because it holds a certain power.
Yes, for sure.
Language. Yeah. So it's just, do not be worried, do not be angry, be grateful, do your duties, be kind to others. So that's in a lot of different Reiki lineages. You can find those everywhere. And so in Sophic Reiki, we do those and as well.
Amazing.
But it's like really, I don't know, it's really powerful. I haven't actually practiced a ton of Reiki just because I'm like very focused on doing life activations for people because I think that's the priority. But Reiki is extremely beautiful and really helps with like the body and the physical body and also the mind.
Right. I feel like in today's society, we need more than ever. I'm actually curious, how do clients come to you? And like typically, like what are some of the first things or some of the things that they're expressing to you when they first are seeking your services?
Oh my gosh, it's such a big variety of things.
Right.
Some of them aren't seeking my services. I just I tell them they need it, and then they're like, okay, I guess I do.
Oh wow. Wow.
People that I meet are people, my friends or whatever. People who reach out to me, it's such a wide variety. Some of them want to become healers. Some of them are searching for, a lot of people that I attract seem to be searching for healing for their heart in some way. So like a love relationship, or maybe they got divorced, or they experienced domestic abuse, or they're searching for love. And those aren't things that people tend to admit right away. So
yeah, I'm always curious, like the awareness moment, because it happens so differently for each person. Like what's the awareness that leads someone to say, hey, I need to go to a healer or a coach, or to seek outside, to do a life activation? Like what is the ding, the light bulb that goes off that actually drives someone to take action? It's so interesting.
It's a really good question. I wish I could answer that because then I find out who all those people were. And
yeah,
I would I love doing this work. I love doing this work. I'd love to do it way more, often. And I'm blessed with every person who is really, they're ready to grow. I think it's something in their soul. They just know.
Right.
ready to go to the next level. And it's funny, like I will set up at events, and I'll if I'm doing mini sessions, it's really amazing. Like I don't even have to say, often I will talk about it, but like when people know, they just know that they're ready. And I think that speaks to the power of these tools and this lineage. It's just something that will call to someone in their soul, and they just know.
I agree. I think there's like a stirring, at least for me, there was a stirring in my soul where, I was like, I feel like there's stuff that I need to explore more. I need to, and I can't do it alone. I'm going to need to seek outside advice in order to do that. It was like, even though I was like, I feel crazy for, doing some of these things. And I think that's the biggest thing to get over, that feeling of like, am I strange for, wanting to, and you will have people who tell you that you're strange for, seeking these healing modalities and, but I think at the end of the day, it's whatever tools help for us individually to grow. There's such value in that, there's such value no matter what people say.
Yeah. And like you were saying earlier, like in places in the world where they haven't kind of lost this connection, this is just life.
This is life.
This is just part of life and growth and healing. And
exactly.
And maybe it seems strange, but it's just because maybe you haven't tried it and you don't realize how connected it is to your life, and how natural and how just fundamental, I would say a lot of these practices are just to life itself and however you choose to live it.
Agreed. I think sometimes in the Western world, we've lost sight of those ancient traditions and practices. And as we were talking about earlier, as I've been traveling, it's been incredibly fascinating to see some of these practices that it just is. Like no one is questioning or like, oh, you're weird for doing that. Nope, this is just actually the way that we do things. And it's a part of being a whole human being is connecting with the divine and connecting with the universe. And, there's different words for it and modalities, but it's more of a accepted and expected in a way, way of living, which is really interesting.
Yeah, totally. And I think people don't realize that they do it anyways. Like, we celebrate holidays at certain times of the year because like the weather is changing and the energies are changing. And like, even there's kind of this obscure, I find this kind of a funny thing. Wicca is like kind of a side little study of the modern mystery school. It's not the main focus, but I have, learned a bit about it. And one of the holidays is Imbolc, and it's like beginning of February, which is like Groundhog Day and also Super Bowl Sunday. So people are celebrating. Right. Whether they know it or not.
Right. Oh, I didn't know that.
Hilarious.
How interesting. See, exactly. We've maybe changed the language and changed our perception of the intention, but the awareness and the celebration is still there as seasons and things go on, which is really, really interesting. So curious. So after life activation, what typically are the next steps in the journey that you'll lead a student on?
Sure. Yeah. There's a bunch of other healing modalities that we could do if someone really wants to focus on healing. But the main thing I recommend for everyone is something called Empower Thyself Initiation.
Okay.
And that's a 2-day class, and you receive rituals and meditations that you can take home and work with on your own. And you're initiated like into the lineage. So you have a little bit, it's like you have this authority to call in these spiritual beings and forces that maybe you didn't have before, which we all have authority to work with angels. All of us, have authority to work with these unseen realms, but it's like a certain specific, once you're initiated, it's like you're saying, I'm ready to grow. I'm ready to evolve to this next level. Right. And most people, pretty much everyone who does it is like not only looking to do it for themselves, they want to serve the world. Right. So they want to improve themselves and change themselves in order to make things better for others. So it gives you like this little oomph of like spiritual power that you can call on every single day. So, and it lasts for your whole life. Nobody can take it away from you. And then that really just sets the foundation for like, if you really want to go deep with your healing work, if you want to offer healings to others, if you want to become a guide and initiate people as well. That's just like the foundation. And I know we talked a little bit earlier about Hermetic. So it's like,
Yes.
It's a fundamental class about metaphysics and Hermetic teaching. So everything we do is based on these teachings of Hermetic principles, which is like everything is mind. Everything has a correspondence. Everything vibrates. Everything has polarity. Everything has rhythm. Everything has cause and effect, and also everything has gender. Not a popular view these days.
Yes, we could go down a whole rabbit hole there. So
Yeah.
7 Hermetic principles?
Yeah.
And it just because I'm unaware of this, is it, these are the principles to guide life, that guide the universe? Explain that just a little bit more.
Yeah, that like really like guide the creation of the universe. So, and so from there, we can apply them to our lives. If we realize that everything has rhythm, we can be like, okay, this season of my life is tough, but it's gonna calm down and come back the other side.
Right.
Or, polarity is like a principle that you can apply, if you like really, really kind of hate someone, you feel a lot of anger towards someone, you realize that the other side of that pole is love and adoration, right? And so you can kind of realize that it's the same thing, but just different poles. So like hot and cold.
Right.
So you can use them in your life to really overcome challenges and deal with things. And,
so interesting. So interesting. How, how do the Hermetic principles play a role in your life? And, are they related at all to any of your core values? I always like to find out what people's core values are, because I think it's a really interesting, foundation for how people think, how they approach the world. So walk me two ends of the question, how do the Hermetic values play a role, and, are they related to any of your core values?
Yeah, I guess, they're kind of like principles. So it's maybe less like values in life, but I think something I do I try to live my life as like realizing that I'm the center, and taking responsibility for, everything in my life, no matter how challenging or unpleasant it is to look at. So those connect to that there, because it gives you an empowering way to like figure it out. If you feel like you're the center of everything, but you have no tools or structure to how could I change this, then you could feel pretty helpless. But,
right.
I guess another core value is serving others and being in integrity and reminding people, who they are and what they are.
Right.
Reminding them, they are the center of their life, and so that aligns, that corresponds with those principles. Definitely. I should have probably like worked with them more, but it's just like it's underlying every practice that I do. So all the rituals that I do, the classes that I teach, like Empower Thyself, and then the life activation, like in order to practice those things, I have to be living in alignment with
right, for sure,
truth, because they're very powerful and very pure modalities. So if you're not in alignment, you just, people just won't come to you.
Right. So true. It's so true. The alignment is everything. And that concept of you are the center, it's a lot of responsibility. And I think that a lot of people, how do I put this? I've heard people who, when we talk about, hey, you're the center, you're the creator of your life, there's often a lot of pushback or defensiveness. It's like, hey, but what about this? But do you experience that from people? And like, how do you maybe push back on them or do you think that if someone's still in that stage where they're pushing back, maybe they're just not ready yet?
yeah, maybe they're just not ready. Also, but it's like, yeah, it doesn't mean that like you know, created all these horrible things in
Right.
your life on purpose and like that
Agreed.
you deserved it. Or yeah, it doesn't mean that like you can't be in your process of healing and really like tending to those tender wounds, whatever you're going through. Like being at the center doesn't mean that you are blaming yourself or you're it's just realizing the truth of the way things are, because then you can move on, you know,
Right.
like
Right. Right.
then you can grow. And if you're not the center, if it's somebody else who's causing you the problems, you can't solve it, you know. That's
Exactly.
so
Exactly.
I see it as really empowering, and it's like the most compassionate thing you can do is remind people of who they are, because then they can do something about it, you know.
Right. Right. It's so true.
Otherwise you're stuck, or you're like, oh God, I'm gonna have to be, you know, I'm just this you know, victim, or I've been so trampled. And it's like, even if that's true, you know, now what are you going to do about it, right?
Right. 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 Exactly. And I think that's really interesting. I've heard so many different, conflicting messages on this, where some people say, so I love your concept of you are the center because it gives people the agency in order to react. But I've also heard people push it to the other direction and say, like anything bad in your life, you've created. Curious, what do you feel? You started talking about it, but just would love to dive more, because I feel like it's something that, people really struggle with. And, I just, my personal opinion, I feel like can be a turnoff, because I personally don't ascribe to that belief, but just curious on, how you grapple with that and kind of your feelings there.
Yeah, I don't, that's a deep conversation that maybe for another time.
Yes.
A lot of subjects that, yeah, no, I don't believe that everything bad in people's life they created. I think that's very, you know, obviously some people go through things when they're children or babies, and it's like, of course they didn't create that, you know.
Right, right, right.
And in an ideal world that, you know, we would be. So a lot of the practices and like healing modalities that I do is like to help us kind of set the stage so that we can be that empowered being, because there's so much that's happened to us. There's so much hurt in the world. There's so much bad stuff that like people people don't really have the choice to act as that empowered
Right,
being. They don't even have, because they're just so heavy
right.
uh, under all the pain and everything, that there's not even the level playing field to be like, no, I am the creator being, right?
So true.
It's like you've already just been cut down at the knees or whatever.
So true.
So a lot of these healing modalities are about raising people up to that higher vibration so that we can embody that I am the center,
Right, right,
even have that choice, you know.
right, right.
Because it's almost, yeah, it's, no, I hear you. It's like, no, people are not causing these things in their life. And like, if you know, if you're so bogged down, you just need to, you know, take care of your basic.
Agreed. Agreed.
You need to take care of basic things. Like this stuff maybe is not for you until you're a little bit more grounded and settled. And
Agreed.
then
I agree.
it's, yeah, it's a messy world. And I yeah, my heart goes out to everyone.
Same.
um
Same.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that sometimes there's almost a black and white thinking, in that realm, where it's like, well, no, you created this. And I'm like, well, the world is more nuanced than that. And there's complexity and layers, and, there's things that are sometimes just inexplainable. Like you can't explain them,
Yeah, totally.
and I think it's having empathy and understanding for
Yeah,
people who are in those circumstances. And, I love what you said. Sometimes you may not be ready, and you have to cover, other things first before you're able to, kind of step into that next phase of growth.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. No, it's it's kind of being embodying this, you know, these spiritual principles. It's not for everyone right away, because some people, we just have to help people get,
Right.
uplifted enough that they can have that choice. They can even have the choice to live, empowered.
Agreed,
So,
agreed, agreed. Great.
yeah.
I'm so curious because you're up to so many cool things. Like, what is one thing that you feel like, wow, this year I really grown in this area, or I'm really unpacking this part of my life, and a lot of things are coming up. Walk us through that. Just curious.
Sure. Yeah. Well, the biggest thing that I've had going on this year is I'm pregnant for the first time. I'm actually very close to being
Yay!
fully pregnant. So yeah, that's been a big part of my journey. Realizing how much I've had to let go to get to this space, and all of
Mm,
the stories and emotional stuff I had about becoming a mom, and also realizing, like, we can talk a lot, like, you know, as someone who's been in this world, I'd be like, oh, the feminine, like,
yes,
talk about
yes,
it. But
yes.
then to really experience this very deeply feminine state, where you feel a little bit helpless, but at the same time, you're doing something incredibly powerful, right?
Right.
It's just very humbling. And I have so much respect, especially for women who do this more than twice or more than once.
I'm, uh, yeah, I'm, I literally am speechless.
Yeah.
It's something I'm curious if you're open to sharing, like, what were some of the things, because, we talked about a little bit, I don't have children yet, and there's definitely a lot of stories around motherhood and becoming a mom and what that means for your life. And what are some of the things that came up for you? And, how has that journey been, like, working through those things?
Well, it's like it's both soft and powerful at the same time. um, I mean, it took me a while to get to this place. I wanted to have kids for a long time, and either it wasn't the right person, or it wasn't the right situation, or I wasn't fully grounded, so it just
Right.
didn't happen until this year. And let me see, what were you asking me? What are the things that I'm grappling with and
Yeah, what were
learning
some of the
about?
things with motherhood? I know there's so many, like, I know I have my own stories around
Yeah.
becoming a mother and, like, what that would mean for my life. And I'm almost embarrassed to share them. I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like, awkward sharing these things. I feel like it's something that people don't talk about a lot. So
Yes.
I'm curious, like, some of the things maybe, or your apprehensions, if there were some, or, some of the things you were thinking about, in this journey.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a lot of, like, having to trust that, things are going to be okay. And
Um,
as a being who chose me in this situation for
right,
a
right.
good reason. And then kind of like the whole death rebirth aspect of it. I really feel that coming. Like, I can feel that it's a death for myself in a way.
Mm.
Yeah, it's completely, like, obliterating the old self.
Right.
And just a big shift. I don't know. I mean, I haven't done it yet, so I don't know,
Yes.
but
No, I'm
uh,
glad you said that though. The death of the old self. It's something I thought of. I've been embarrassed to admit it. And, like, if I were to have children, like, your life is different, and it just is. There's no other way to,
right.
it just is. And there's beauty in that. And there's a fear in that too, that I think a lot of people are unwilling to admit and talk about. Like, I know I would be afraid of, there would be one part of me, honestly, that would be afraid of what my life would look like because it would be different. It's the unknown. But
It's a
with that,
loss.
it's exciting. It's really exciting. It's an exciting thing. So, um, yeah, it's so fascinating. How, I don't think people talk about that death of the old self.
Yeah, I think it would be great if we'd all talk about it more often, because I think it is very prominent on women's minds. And but it is very, especially these days, where we're expected to really have a career,
Right.
and it
Right.
becomes something that's almost secondary, or like, oh, I'll do it then, or I'll do it when I'm ready. And it's like, well, what if it's really like the center? What if it,
Yeah.
and then also realizing like, oh my gosh, I think I actually think I'm going to be more successful with my business after I'm a mom,
Right.
which was the opposite of what I fear. That was part of my fear, was I have to give up doing what I love and in order to become a mom. And there's a little bit of that definitely right now in this whole 9 months that I've struggled with, of having to give up certain things. But it's temporary, and
Right.
it's going to come out the other side in a different form, and I think stronger.
Right.
So,
Right.
and I don't think people hear, I think women aren't really getting that message that like, oh, actually, like maybe becoming a mom would, accelerate your career and your dreams in a way.
I don't think so. I really don't. I feel like you're the first person. I feel like I needed to hear this. You're the first person I've heard unpack it in that way, because usually it's the opposite message, or not talking about it at all, which serves no one, I think.
Yeah, or focusing on the like childcare aspect
Exactly.
or whatever. But I think, especially in this world where we have so many opportunities to connect, and like we're, on opposite coasts right now.
Right.
It's so cool. There's so many opportunities and
So many.
flexibility, ways that we can figure it out.
So true.
Especially if you're an entrepreneur,
Right. We make things happen. Entrepreneurs.
I'm saying this now. I don't have a small infant in my arm, I might change my tune.
Well, I'm so excited for you, and you'll have to keep us posted, it's just huge congratulations. So I know I could chat with you forever. I want to make sure that we do one thing before we end here. I know you have some amazing hermetic cards, correct? I would love to see them. And if you could tell us a little bit more about these incredible cards, that would be fantastic.
Sure. Yeah, this was something fun. We can draw a card for maybe the audience. We can just kind of tune in, see maybe what they need to hear.
Feel the energy of the audience.
So go ahead.
I'm like, let's feel the energy of the audience and let's see.
Yeah. So these were created by one of the CEOs or people in the Modern Mystery School, Ipsissimus Dave Lanyon. So he's one of my teachers. And he just wrote a book also based on Hermetic principles. And then he made these cards and he put a lot of magic into them. Like he said, there's all kinds of magic in them. So they're just contemplation cards. They're not tarot cards or anything like that. So they're just little wisdom. But I'll let Teju choose. I'll just pull things up, see if we can figure out how to do this.
I'm excited. For whatever reason, the number 4 is being, I don't know, I hear 4. So the 4th card into the deck would be amazing.
Okay. We're going to have to start over.
Okay, we'll start over.
1, 2, 3.
They're so beautiful. The design of them are stunning.
Aren't they pretty? I know.
They're so pretty.
Okay. So this one is the card.
I'm so excited. I feel like I'm I'm a little nervous to see what it is.
So the word is no. And then it says, doubt is why people have faith in God, but do not know God.
How interesting. Huh. No, and we were talking about know thyself earlier. Yeah. So that's funny, one of the things that you talk about all the time. Interesting. Okay, everyone. We'll write that. Do you mind flashing that one more time so we can make sure that we get the copy? That was why people have faith in God but do not know God. No. Amazing. We'll write that and create, something on social media so that people can receive that message after watching this.
Sure.
Amazing. Amazing, amazing. Where can we find you online, on social media, and anything that you're working on next that we should know about?
Sure, yeah. So right now I'm just working on a little human.
Yeah. Which is a big job.
But I'm available, to chat and connect with people and maybe, start scheduling sessions a couple of months from now. But you can find me at lovelifeactivate.com. That's my website. I'm kind of a dinosaur, and I'm just most active on Facebook. You can find me.
I'm like, don't worry. If it were for my team, I'd be like social media. I'm like on the struggle bus. I'm on the struggle bus.
Are you like a millennial as well?
I am. I'm a millennial. I'm an older millennial. And, I remember life before Facebook. I'm like totally outing my age. So
yeah, me too. Yeah.
I'm like on the struggle bus with TikTok and Pinterest and trying to like do all the things. Like I like can't even. I can't keep up.
Yeah. I just kind of stick to Facebook and Margaret Dembinski, just my name. You can add me as a friend in my personal account or just follow. And that's really where I post the most updated things going on.
Amazing.
For me. I also have a newsletter, which you can join from my website, which is kind of once every 2 months or so.
Okay.
I'm also on Instagram, but again, I just don't use it that much. So
yes, yeah, no worries.
I would love a team. I would love a team you have that make some really polished, really beautiful stuff. Yeah.
Yes. We'll have to chat after because that's for me, like that's the only way things get done. I'm like, I do not have the vibe to be like cool on social. No. Yeah. Anyhow. Margaret, I cannot thank you enough. Thank you so much for all the wisdom, your energy, all the love. I'm incredibly grateful. This has been just fantastic. So thank you. And good luck and, keep us posted. Wishing you, just a beautiful rest of your pregnancy and, just health to you and the baby and everything. So thank you.
Thank you so much. It's really been such a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Bye.